Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's UBNradio.com.
Welcome to the Richard Listens show. I am the producer and host of the show, Peter Soby, and without further ado or going into too much, I will now introduce you to the man of the show, Richard Oelberger. Dr. Richard, if you will, or Richard Oelberger PhD. I always get a little bit confused as to can I call you Dr. Richard Oelberger PhD, or is that too excessive, you know?
Well, it's kind of a double. You only need to say one. But I prefer, some of the clients I had on Skid Row called me Dr. Zero. They couldn't understand the O, so they just called me Dr. Zero. It has kind of a superhero quality. So
yeah, it does. Actually, it's kind of got a supervillain quality to it.
So we'll stay with, Dr. Rich.
Okay, Dr. Richard.
Yeah.
Actually, that's funny because I've never considered you a Rich.
Yeah, well, I had to make that choice in third grade. There was me and another Richard, and I lost the short straw. So
you became Rich.
I became Rich.
I've always called you Richard.
Yes, so did my parents. So that's why I always listen to what you say.
Okay, very interesting. Well, enough of that small talk chatter. We are here with Richard Listens, and as you probably have ascertained by now, if you weren't with us on our first show 2 weeks ago, Richard Oelberger PhD has his doctorate in psychology, and decided that he wanted to share with people a lot of his knowledge and wisdom, and especially on the sports psychology tip.
That's right. This has been a great opportunity to bring out people who have a passion for sports, who are doing amazing things with athletes and with other individuals, to bring out the excited potential of sports and love of sports, and interact and create culture and relationships through sport. So I'm happy to help facilitate that. Excellent.
And so, as I'm sure people might remember if they watched our first show, our topic of that show was life after sports for athletes. And that's actually going to tie into, we have a couple of special features we do here every episode of Richard Listens show. So coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll have the Richard Listens list of 3. And actually, life after sports for athletes is going to be kind of tied into that list of 3. I'll give that little dangling thing there for people to anticipate. I wonder what it could be involved with. Maybe Major League Baseball.
Maybe.
Which could be very exciting.
Sounds apropos.
And speaking of topics of the show, the topic tonight is called Loving, Inclusive, Sports. And tell us a little bit of what does this topic mean, and what does it mean to you, Richard?
Well, it's both the love of sports that both children, parents, participants, athletes, all the way up to the Olympic level, as we're in the time of the Olympics now. You can tell there has to be a certain love there to discover a passion for something, to discover the ability to commit to something, whether it be simply Sundays on the soccer field in the heat, or if back east, having to battle all kinds of weather conditions. But and loving inclusive being that we really want to focus sports on, the more you get into the world of sportsmanship and giving everyone a chance to participate, certainly we have to extend the barriers of what sports can do. And so we want to move into helping people with all kinds of challenges and disabilities, and just the desire to get out there in any way possible. So whether that be through all kinds of creative games or through modifications to other games that we play, the inclusive realm of sport.
That's great. And Jarvis, we're excited to bring our guest aboard, and we will soon, but can we turn his mic down for right now? just because we're getting a lot of breathing from a mystery place that isn't Richard or me. And we do have a guest here in the studio today, and we will get to him in a moment. We're excited about him because he is a great leader in the aspect of inclusive and loving sports. I think it's a really, really great topic, and I'm excited that it's the topic of our second show because, you could listen to sports radio and all that and talk about sports up and down and left and right. But to talk about, sports and athletes that can include people that don't have the opportunity to play with, on that sort of level is something really incredible.
Yeah, the fact that there are organizations out there creating opportunities, that there are coaches devoting their time to making it a possibility to really get to the level of making it possible for people to play the sports that they love and to emulate their heroes in whatever capacity they can. And some of it is just having the opportunity to develop skills, maybe because they've been discouraged from an early age to not participate or haven't really found the medium to do so. So the fact that now there's more accessible opportunities, that there's more leagues and more people out there making this happen is making it possible for you and I to have this discussion.
Totally, absolutely. And a lot of my friends or mutual friends that know me and know the show, if you're watching the show and you don't really know me outside the show, you can only see my torso, but I use a wheelchair. And so I'm not necessarily involved in sports. I'm a huge sports fan, and I played a couple of years of quad rugby in college.
Wow.
Since I'm a quadriplegic, and that's a whole nother topic. But, so it's something that's very close to me, too, because I was a very competitive person before I was injured in a wheelchair, and I love sports, and to have that opportunity was a great thing. So I love that we can embrace this topic today, and not to talk about me for one more minute, but I'll give it about 30 seconds, is, I broke my spinal cord when I was 19 years old. And yesterday, Sunday, August 14th, was my 29-year anniversary of my injury.
Wow.
And to me, it's something to be celebrated that, it's not something that I look at with chagrin or anything. I look at it as, wow, 29 years and I'm still not just surviving, but thriving, so I love it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I get to be here with you doing this show and talking about great topics like this.
Yeah, and it should be noted I probably would not be here without Peter introducing me to UBN Radio and helping to create this opportunity. But it's the passion for sports that I get. I probably lose track of time when we start to get into these topics.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the blog ideas, and Peter is really on the pulse of what's happening. So.
Yeah, and I guess we should actually mention before we are about to get to our special guest, but speaking of your blogs, we'll give the contact information at the end of the show, but, Richard puts out a blog like maybe about every other Wednesday. We're going to strive for every Wednesday. And, just related to topics, especially dealing with sports psychology. So you can always go to his Facebook page at facebook.com, RichardListens, or RichardListens.com. So we mentioned the Olympics. The Olympics are going on right now, and the show we're going to touch on the Special Olympics, and we are going to talk about the Olympics that are going on right now. We have a real special video that we're going to show you at about a half hour into the show. That's a really, I would say it's probably, you just shared it with me, and it's instantly become my favorite Olympic moment ever. And it's a really great video that we're going to share with you, but you got to wait about a half hour. So that's some pretty good incentive, right? So speaking of Special Olympics, we will now turn up our guest mic again and introduce our very, very special guest today. And I'll let you introduce him, Richard.
Okay. Without further ado, someone I've known for over 15 years, although he kept his identity concealed to me. I just knew him as, I think, man making carrots in the kitchen. So little did I know that Mr. Jeff Liss was secretly developing a program to help people of all sorts of disabilities and challenges to be able to have an opportunity to play basketball, and developed a relationship between local Los Angeles individuals and the Special Olympics. So without further ado, he can do much more credit to the Special Maccabees. My guest is Mr. Jeffrey Liss.
Welcome to the show, Jeffrey.
So I want to thank Peter and Richard for having me here, because it's always a great opportunity to speak about the organization that we all started called Special Maccabees. It kind of was a brainchild from something that I've been doing for about 23 years, which was Special Olympics. And Special Maccabees started around 10 years ago. And I have to say that it wouldn't have started if it wasn't for my wife. So I want to thank her, first of all. And basically, how Special Maccabees started was my wife and I were walking on 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, and we saw a group of special needs people walking. And I went up to them and I asked the director, I said, "What do you guys do for sports? What do you do? What kind of programs do you have?" And he said to me, "We really don't have anything." And I was in shock that they didn't have anything. And I looked at all these athletes or group people that were there, and I said, my gosh, they look like they could have so much fun. And I had been coaching Special Olympics, and I knew this was a Jewish group. And I know that a lot of observant Jewish people can't do Special Olympics because most of our games are on a Saturday. So I talked to my wife and I said, we got to do something about this. I mean, there's got to be something we can do for these observant Jewish athletes so they can have some kind of outlet to do sports. So we thought of the name Special Maccabees, and then it ended. Nothing happened.
How did you just think of that name?
Well, it was easy because special with Special Olympics, and then Maccabee is always some kind of Jewish word that was very famous from years and years ago, and it just became like Special Maccabees. So after about 6 months, my wife came up to me and asked me, what's going on with that organization that you wanted to start? What's happening with that? And I said, nothing's happening. Everybody I talk to tells me you have to do this, you have to be nonprofit, you have to have a lot of money, you have to have these groups behind you, you have to have all this. And I said, I'm so confused, I don't know what to do. So my wife, thank God, said to me, she said, do what you do best, which is just do it. And she was right, because special need athletes don't care where you get the money, where you get the basketballs, where you get the softballs, where you get the gym. They just want to go out there and compete. So basically, I just got a gym, and one of the prerequisites of the gym was I had to have a gym that the baskets could come down lower, because I knew that I would athletes that wouldn't be able to reach 10 feet, and they would only be able to reach 8 feet. So we were able to get the Jewish Community Center over at Olympic, and I got a bunch of my friends, and we just pulled some money together. We bought some basketballs. We just started talking to different people about, do you know anybody that's special? And they said, yeah, this person. I got a hold of their parents, and we literally started our first year with maybe, 5 or 10 athletes, and then one mother would tell somebody else, and then another, and this and that, and it just grew and grew to where we finished our 10th year last year.
Amazing. And it's men and women, correct?
Right. It's men and women. What we do is we practice separately, and we also have our games separate.
And now, Richard, the reason why Jeff is one of our guests today is because, he's a leader in loving inclusive sports. But tell us a little bit about your story with Maccabee and kind of the synchronicity that you had that led you to getting involved with the Special Maccabees.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, Peter. Well, as I think I've mentioned before and been blogging about over the last year has been all about, to borrow off of our last week's guest, repurposing myself and getting back into passion and excitement and things that drive me to help. I mean, the purpose of psychology is to assist others and educate others. And I found that that's a hard task to drive when you're not really tapped into passion. So one of the earliest experiences I had the good fortune of being a part of was of a different name, but in the same spirit, called the Maccabee Games, when I was 16 years old. And I was able to travel with a band of brothers, of a team really that had a tremendous love and care for one another. It was one of the first teams I was on where there was that kind of support and connection and fellowship, and travel to Baltimore, Maryland, and get to compete and meet players from all over the world in something I love, which was basketball, where I formed quite a bit of my own identity and formed social relationships and networks for a great, until today in a lot of ways. So having had that experience, and because this year was about getting back into myself and getting back into excitement, I happened to discover there's actually an adult opportunity to try out and participate in the Maccabee Games. There's actually a team that's over 35. And so I've decided to take the plunge and give it a shot and try out and have to face all the, the preparation, anxiety, and all the other internal process that goes along with that. But
and that is going to be great. I think that I will encourage you to blog about it and share that adventure with your listeners and watchers and followers.
I most definitely will. I'm excited to do so.
So anyway, you had the experience
Yes.
of learning about the Maccabees.
So while I was out there getting excited, committing to something, the question always comes back to why. Why are you doing this? To go and prove that I can make a ball in the basket, probably isn't enough motivation to go and try out and compete versus other athletes and try and be a part of something that travels all the way across the world to compete. But in that process of looking for that why, a friend of mine said, "Hey, Jeff Liss is doing this amazing thing, and I think he may need some support." So, Jeff and I, even though we've known each other for many years, had not had the opportunity to connect around what he'd been doing. And just one, he was kind enough to take me to lunch and really put me into, really moved me and put me into tears about everything he's gone through over the last decade, and his purpose and his mission, and the amount of trust and love that he's put into it. And so that excitement really kind of sparked to me this amazing synchronicity of events, of both being passionate but also of offering to people what they're not able to access.
Right. And go ahead and lift your mic up a little bit so you don't have to lean into it. And what's amazing about that is and before I get into this little segue, we do have a special call-in guest that we will get to in a moment. So I know you're listening, Rob Green, and we will be bringing you aboard very, very shortly. Thank you for your patience. So that's a really amazing story, the synchronicity between you discovering adult Maccabees that you're going to go for, and then having a friend introducing you to the notion that, hey, this guy that I know but don't know a lot about has a Special Maccabees program. So you call him up and then tell us really quick, Jeff, about how you were kind of looking to bring someone aboard, and then all of a sudden you get a call.
Well, this organization, Special Maccabees, is definitely not run by me or run by any of my coaches. It's run by the guy above. And whenever we need anything for this organization, whether it's coaches, whether it's money, whether it's we don't have a court on Sundays and all of a sudden a court time appears for us, it just happens. So even though when Richard called me up and I was a little surprised, I wasn't really surprised because I know that good people come to this organization. And with Richard, with his background of sports and the psychology, it only made sense that he would be a perfect fit to help our organization.
Right. And it's just, to me, it's amazing too, though, that it was just like within a couple days of you thinking like, the right person will be manifested, and you got the phone call from Richard. And now, speaking of the right people to come aboard and help out and everything like that, we do have a call-in guest that is joining us. And Jarvis, we have him online, correct? And I should say, too, last week I felt bad because at the end of the show, I'm thanking everyone, and, we're all a big love fest. And Jarvis, I never gave you any love for being such a great engineer. So I'll remember to acknowledge you at the end of the show, and I acknowledge you now. Jarvis is the engineer of the show, and he just does an incredible job. So, without further ado, I'd like to say hello to our special guest, Rob Green. Hello, Rob.
Hey, how you doing there?
Thank you for your patience and waiting. So, Rob Green came to us with our guest, Jeff. And Rob, if you don't mind, instead of me going through some long dissertation, tell us how you got involved with Jeff and with Special Maccabees and the Special Olympics.
Yeah, I actually met Jeff at Special Olympics probably 16, 17 years ago, and we actually met, doing volleyball. And then subsequently, we did basketball and softball together. And Jeff had always put forth the idea of starting an organization for the Jewish athletes who were special needs. And I just kind of listened and I told him I thought it would be a good idea. And then just finally, one year he got it together and put the Special Maccabees together. And I guess I've been there from the start. But Jeff is kind of like the Energizer Bunny, and the genesis for the organization and the whole thing behind it really came from Jeff and actually Liss, his wife.
Right. We can't forget to mention Liz. I mean, Jeff, you did bring her in earlier, so yeah. And now, Rob, the topic of our show today is loving inclusive sports. And the reason why Jeffrey is our guest and we're having you aboard is because, you guys are kind of like leaders in this area. And it takes a lot, I think, for a person to get involved in doing this, to open up a whole new world of opportunities for people. And Jeff, I am going to kind of pose this question to you after Rob. But Rob, since we have you on right now, what was it that led you to saying, hey, I want to get involved in creating this atmosphere for people that might not have the opportunity?
Well, I first saw actually the Special Olympics, how I got involved with the Olympics. I just saw them on TV. Actually, it was a little blurb on it, and it was the finals over at UCLA. And I kind of thought, that would be pretty neat. I've been involved with sports since I was quite young and always loved athletics. And then about 6 months later, there was an ad in the paper for a Special Olympics coach, and that's how I first got involved. And but subsequently, when Jeff started the Special Maccabees, I was totally on board, and you get so much out of it. The self-worth and the sportsmanship and the working together that the athletes share is just a wonderful feeling. And any sort of effort that a person puts forth comes back to them 3, 4, 5-fold. So it's always been very rewarding for me.
And Richard, what's your kind of take on getting involved with this sort of thing?
Yeah, I think Rob just touched on it, that last line, that that it's very hard. We often get so bogged down with so many, responsibilities and busyness, but the opportunity to give to other people, to create this opportunity, the qualities that we discover within ourselves, it can't be measured. And oftentimes we learn the most about ourselves from being able to provide for something, for someone else, something that, that they could not provide for themselves. And just being a part of that, it can be electric, it's transformative. So it has this very, spiritual quality to it. Talking about loving kindness.
Yeah.
And so from that, the kind of feelings of, self-esteem and self-worth, right? Because you're not there because you have to. You're not there. You're only there because you want to. And there's a vision, hopefully a shared vision that you're creating for them. So it's literally, it's creation. It's creation through sports. It's creativity through sports. And so, in that way, these gentlemen are artists.
Right. And, it's funny, before the show, we were talking for a moment, Jeff, and when Rob and Richard just touched there on, why you get involved and it's transformative and you're helping people. And when you help people, it always comes back twofold in something. A funny thing that you reflected on, saying, when you try to attract new coaches, that you sometimes go for the single coaches.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. And you know what? I was just thinking about how Richard said things come twofold, and we had my son 10 years ago, and I think we had him just before we started Special Maccabees. So part of that might be one of the reasons why I try to get single coaches, and the reason is because I just feel that single people might have to do one more what we call mitzvah, or one more good deed, before they can find what we say their besheret or their soulmate. So it seems to me if I can get a single person to come coach, there's a possibility that through that season of them helping and seeing the athletes, that it might springboard them to get married.
I love it. I mean, that's so all of you men and women out there that want to get into coaching and some special things and are looking for your soulmate, I think Jeffrey here might have an opportunity for you. But as much as we kind of joke about that, I mean, I think that what Jeffrey and Rob are doing, and eventually Richard's going to be helping, it's amazing what we could learn when we go outside of ourselves and help others. And Rob, I just want, if before we say goodbye to you, even though your time has been a little bit short, tell us, and Jeff, we'll get into this with you too, a little bit about when you get the Special Maccabees together to play a team from the Special Olympics.
Well, that's our shining moment for the athletes, because it's the culmination of the season. We have about a 3-4 month season of basketball, and that's the opportunity they have to kind of show their stuff and perform as a team, et cetera, et cetera. And it's great. And probably the best thing, I mean, other than seeing the joy and the excitement from the athletes, is really getting the reaction from the family, friends, relatives of the athletes that come, and really it's a heartfelt thing, and the thanks, and you see parents with tears in their eyes, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a great thing, and lucky enough, we just this past year were able to celebrate our 10th season and game, and it was a great game, right, Jeff?
It was an amazing game.
Yeah.
And you guys will have one at the end of this next season too, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right.
And actually, Jarvis, this isn't necessarily from that game, but it's a good opportunity to play the video, the one that's kind of labeled as tribute. And this will kind of give some of our watchers an idea about just the feel and everything of the Special Maccabees, and you'll see some images and stuff. So we'll have... That was great. Thanks, Jarvis. And actually, not that we're going to go on a video tear right now, but I'd like to go ahead, Jarvis, and also play. There's a kind of a video there of them practicing. So I think it'll be great to show our audience. You'll kind of see, there's a little slow-mo at the end, and you just see them kind of going through the strides. So go ahead and run that video, Jarvis.
Sharon's open. Sharon. Here. Sharon's open. No. Go get the Sharon. Max. Sharon's open. Sharon's open. Here. Shoot it, Sharon. Nice.
So, as you could see from that video, Jerome was open a lot. And tell us one more thing, Rob and Jeff. I pose this to you guys, what is how do you run a practice for the Special Maccabees and everything? What is that like to say compared to what your average basketball team would go through?
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, we go through the basics. We start with well, first of all, we're pretty diligent in having everybody stretch and get loose to prevent any sports injuries, but we simply then get into passing drills, dribbling drills, rebounding drills, layup lines, shooting drills, and then typically we end the practice with a scrimmage, maybe 15, 25-minute scrimmage, and pretty much hands-on. We always have a lot of coaches, and that's kind of the way we run. And we're very careful to do it by skill level. Of course, it's a wide spectrum of skills of our different athletes. So we only put the athletes with athletes of a similar ilk, and we kind of run it that way.
And one thing that I also wanted to mention and have you speak on, Jeff, is that at this at last year's, was it the game, the medals were presented by an Olympic gold
Lenny.
medalist.
Yeah. So we practiced at the JCC, and Lenny Kreiselberg, who's I think a 4-time gold swimming medalist, runs a swim team down there. And my son one year was taking swim classes, and I thought to myself, I said to my wife, I got to meet this Lenny guy. Somehow maybe he can help us, or he can come up and shake hands. And I didn't know what he looked like, and all of a sudden I see this guy that looked like really good shape, kind of tall. I said, is that Lenny? And they said, yeah. So I went up to Lenny and I said, Lenny, listen, I run this program upstairs. I don't know if you heard of us. We're called Special Maccabees, and we're an organization for special needs basketball players. If you ever have a chance, if you could come up and just maybe shoot some hoops or say hello to the players, take some pictures. And he said, can I come up right now? Wow. So he came up. First of all, he loves basketball, and he hit it off with all the athletes. Now, last year, he asked me, he said, Jeff, what can I do to help you? And I said, Lenny, we have a big game at the end of the year, and we're always looking for sponsors and things like that. If you want to sponsor the pizza, you're welcome to do that. He said, I'll sponsor all the food, whatever you want. Now, at the end of the games, we give out really good medals, because the athletes, they call medals hardware. And they love getting hardware, and sometimes they'll wear their hardware for weeks and weeks and show everybody. So one of the amazing things about last year's game was my Special Maccabee and my Special Olympic All-Stars were getting their medals from a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. And it was amazing for the athletes and also amazing for the parents and the families to see that. So we thank Lenny really a ton.
That is great. And Richard, hopefully we can get him on one of the future shows.
We'll see. We'll see if listen. It's been to talk about synchronicity. Like each guest here on Richard Listens leads to another opening. So
absolutely,
we hope so.
And
be
Lenny,
honored.
it looks
be
like
honored to have an Olympian, especially since he's got that shared love for New York as well. So.
Right. Oh yeah, the shared love for New York between these two. But also Lenny runs a program for children swimming and for underprivileged children and special needs children. So it sounds like a great guy.
He's a great guy.
So Rob Green, thank you for calling in, and it was
Rob.
a pleasure to have you on the show.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank Richard and Peter and Jeff. I'll see you around.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks, Rob.
Rob.
Take care. So time is flying right by, and generally here on Richard Listens, we have a couple of features. One of them is called Richard Listens, where I kind of pose as like, somebody that Richard would give advice to. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to that feature tonight, but we are going to get to our feature called Richard Listens List of 3. And tonight's topic for Richard Listens List of 3 is dealing with Major League Baseball and retirement. So I'll kind of introduce the list, and then I'll let Richard kind of give the sports psychologist view about that aspect of it. So number 1 on Richard's list of 3 this week is Alex Rodriguez.
Oh, we went right to the big one, huh? Yes. I have to say, as a sports fan who I believe was coming out of high school right when Alex Rodriguez made it into the big leagues, and watched him do some superb things over time, including knock out the crosstown rival New York Yankees in the early 90s, the early to mid 90s. This was a bit of a shocker, but this is a unique example of retirement, being out of his control. Even though the press conference, he's agreed to some sort of deal where he'd stay on as an advisor, which is a unique opportunity actually for somebody who's been involved in quite a bit of scandal and fallen out of favor in the public eye due to connection with steroid use and
Right.
So the unique things about this retirement is his opportunity has been given by a very world-class organization to save face, to stay on in a mentorship role. I mean, anyone who's seen him in front of a camera, very polished, really excellent play-by-play commentator, in my opinion, and has command of English and Spanish. And there's a generation of ball players who are coming up and probably have seen him hit 696 home runs, and that would love to learn from him. So there is a transition here, albeit probably a sad one and a little bit sudden.
Right. And actually, like the opportunity, being that you deal with sports psychology, this is a type of opportunity for maybe a lot of other athletes who have to retire for whatever reason to get involved in a mentorship role. And like, look at the Miami Marlins letting Barry Bonds in to mentor their hitters as the hitting coach,
Exactly. I mean, even though these players are major leaguers, at some point they're at a whole nother level. The pressure is greater than it's ever been. Their contracts, the monetary value, the pressure to perform, the history of and legacy of especially a club like the New York Yankees. So younger players that are coming in, especially now there's a lot of influx of players from a variety of other Spanish-speaking countries as well, and some where that's really their primary language. So to have somebody in the ball club that's at the field, making them feel comfortable, that's been there, not necessarily in having this, Alex Rodriguez always very well educated and well spoken, but someone who can understand them and can relate to them, and that has been there and tried and true for 20 years and succeeded over time in a variety of roles.
Yeah, and I mean for a lot of athletes too, like it's obviously not going to be on a level of Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds, But there will be
maybe they're
opportunities
also
for
hoping
them.
that he'll share some of his regrets about not
absolutely.
staying
Clean.
doing things clean and the advantages of really putting in the hard work. So we're hoping there's a lesson that comes from being a veteran and learning.
But for a lot of other retired athletes, so there's going to be opportunities like at a high school level, a collegiate level, and heck, even like to get involved in a Special Maccabees type level. Those opportunities are out there for retired athletes.
Exactly. I mean, we all know that the part of sports psychology is looking at the physical body is limited, even for these prime athletes. At some point, injuries do happen. The muscles don't fire at quite the same rate. It's hard to react to a fastball, as supposedly the case of Alex Rodriguez in the high 90s, at just quite the same speed to perform at quite that level, and really shows how difficult it is what they do. But in realizing that beyond your physical body, there are all these amazing skills that probably at times get overlooked in becoming this form of an elite athlete who faces this much pressure on a daily basis, and the gifts that they have to offer, and how many people are looking up to and waiting just to get their chance to practice or throw a ball or get a tip.
Absolutely. And talking about the body breaking down at a certain age, that leads us into our number 2 on Richard Listens' list of 3, which is Mark Teixeira, also speaking of the Yankees.
Yes, came a week or two earlier than Alex Rodriguez, and a little bit less controversial of a character. One of the top 4 people of all time as a switch hitter, I think of, and home runs that he hit, but certainly not able to produce the level of the contract that the New York Yankees offered him, and in an era where they seem to be going through a bit of a fire sale of getting rid of a lot of their older, more expensive players. Probably urged to announce his retirement before people remember him in a kind of a fallen performance kind of way, and to go out on a week where he contributed to winning a few games and still showed some fire out there. So again, in his tearful retirement speech, just an acknowledgement that he can't. He's appreciative of the gifts, appreciative of the opportunity, but just can't perform at the same level that he once did.
And hopefully he'll find some like opportunities out there.
Oh, absolutely. Quality character.
And number 3 on our Richard Listens list of 3, and I will say that we do have a number 4, just like our first show.
We like the number 3, but...
Yes. But number 3 on the list is David Ortiz.
Yeah, well, David Ortiz, a.k.a. Big Papi, is, it's a bit different story than the 2 Yankees. I mean, here's a gentleman with a lot of charisma, also played about 20 years and is going out on quite a high note, having a great season, and who announced his retirement before the season started, helped the Red Sox get back to and win their first World Series and beat the cursed Yankees. So he's got quite a legacy and really a feared hitter. Playing in Boston,
and he's being celebrated every city he goes to. I mean,
exactly.
we got a picture here with him at with the White Sox. I don't know if you could find that, Jarvis, but yeah, it's like with Chris Sale of the White Sox, they give him a huge humidor of Cuban cigars or something, but it's like compared to how Alex Rodriguez is going out here, you got David Ortiz that everyone's giving him celebrations in every city he goes to.
Yeah, well, he's certainly taken this gracefully. He's proven he could still be a major contributor on his team. He did not leave Boston. He stayed and contributed to the end, and they're still certainly right in the thick of things competition-wise. So.
And he's contributing greatly. Everyone's saying, you sure you want to retire?
Yes. So I think, but it's given him this chance to really leave and become a much more lovable character, to kind of transition out on his own terms, and prepare himself to spend more time with family, and just to acknowledge, that there's a recovery. There is a toll, even if it hasn't affected his performance. There's an emotional toll. There's a commitment that prevents you from exploring other things in life, and certainly a gentleman with a lot of charisma and a lot of love in a lot of different countries.
Right. And speaking of explore other things in life, the number 4 on Richard's list of 3, and I'm really intrigued by your take on this one, is Tim Tebow, because even though he's a commentator on ESPN now and kind of forced out of the NFL because he wasn't up to par as a quarterback, has announced that he's going to try out for baseball. So it's one of those fine lines, like, when do you say it's over and give up, even though baseball's a new thing? What's your take on this?
Well, Tim Tebow, and first of all, I'm proud to be a Florida Gator, so I'm glad you brought him up. But in watching him in the back-to-back championship runs, I think they fell just barely short to Alabama in the second year. But certainly a Heisman Trophy winner, and just the leadership qualities that he have, the commitment and the passion. Certainly ran into he's a little bit polarizing in the NFL because of the amount of attention he does draw to himself. But, he defines so many qualities of being an athlete and being a leader that, I think it's amazing that he's trying to do something that everyone says he just simply can't do in terms of reinvigorating his baseball career that he had as a high school athlete, and that he gave up to go play football. So I think it's wonderful. I think he's got the work ethic. He certainly is never, he's always been the first one to take responsibility, really, have a press conference after a loss that they had to LSU at one point where he got up and just took it on himself. And those kind of qualities of a young man who is still, probably 19, 20 years old, or someone who is going to keep giving it a shot and really hasn't seen it as a failure at all, that, he kept trying out for NFL teams, and he's going to keep pushing until he gets some way to repurpose his athleticism. He's already a wonderful commentator.
Yeah, and I got to say that I really love the fact too that you see it as an inspiring thing. I really don't appreciate the haters that hate on him for, saying that he wants to try out for baseball. I think it's completely inspiring and awesome, and shows a younger generation that if you got it in you, go for it.
Absolutely. Well, he's also an individual with tremendous other skills, and like you said, he does have the ability to repurpose it into broadcasting, and
right.
So, it's good to be thinking about, hey, what's my backup plan if the baseball thing doesn't work? But I'm sure he's, got a certain amount of time that he's willing to devote to this, and if he is going to go after it and prepare for a tryout, he's probably doing everything in his power to get ready and bring in the support system to do so.
Absolutely. So. That was our Richard Listens list of 3, our 4 items there. So we've only got a couple of minutes left of the show, and unfortunately I gave this great big teaser in the beginning about talking about the Olympics and our favorite new Olympic moment. Well, it wasn't new. It was actually from the Barcelona Olympics. And
1992, yeah.
And, basically, what was the runner's name? Do you remember off the top of your head? I don't remember his name, but if you look up kind of special moment of Barcelona Olympics and YouTube it, look at father-son finishing the race. In a nutshell, really quick, Richard, what happened in this video?
Well, it's so emotional to even put it up. I'm glad you didn't, because I'd go right to tears. Basically, the athlete from 1992 who had won his heat and was competing in the final, I believe tore his hamstring 100 meters into the race, and his father rushed from the stands and helped him get back up and complete the race. And the way in which it happened, in which Olympic security was kind of, trying to prevent the father from doing so, or kept urging him to step away, and the father's love for the son, the clear pain and disappointment of both physical injury and sadness of not being able to win, but also the clear, understanding of the father that just getting across that finish line would have meaning for the rest of his life.
Yeah, somehow I never saw that, and just seeing that video is just, like I said, it's my new favorite Olympic moment. It's unbelievable. So we need to wrap out now, and so I'd like to take it back to our guest, Jeff. Thank you for being with us here today, Jeffrey Liss of the Special Maccabees, the founder and coach of the Special Maccabees. And I know that you guys are always looking for, funds, all that sort of stuff. Can you give out your email address where people can reach you if they'd like to learn more or get involved?
The best way to reach us is through Facebook. We have about 800 likes. We're trying to get 1,000 likes. If we get 1,000 likes before our first practice, we'll have a pizza party for all our athletes. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to give to Peter and Richard a Special Maccabees hat.
No way. That's incredible.
Richard has already got one of these, so I'm going to give him one for his wife.
Oh, wow.
So hopefully you guys will wear this.
And I actually love that blue one, so that's perfect.
Hopefully you'll wear
Thank
this
you so much.
with pride. And we really hope that any people that are listening to us right now, any people that have special needs, friends, or anything like that, please contact me. I can help you with Special Olympics or Special Maccabees to do whatever we can to help the athletes. Thank you, guys.
And throughout the show, Jeffrey's email's been under his name, so you can reach him there. And it's facebook.com/Special Maccabees or the Special Maccabees.
Yeah, just go to Facebook and put in Special Maccabees, and it will come up. Or you can go to YouTube and put up Special Maccabees, and you can see some of our games.
Great. And on a final note, we will be back in 2 weeks and be looking out on Richard Listens' Facebook for who our guests will be. It's going to be a very, very special show. I guarantee you that. Richard, just tell us real quick how we can reach you. What's the Facebook and Twitter?
As always, Twitter at Richard Listens and Facebook.com/RichardListens and RichardListens.com.
And remember that Richard Listens is Richard Oelberger, and he's always here for you, and he's easy to find and contact. If you ever have any sports psychology needs or psychology needs, I can personally vouch that Richard is your man. So, Richard, it's been another great show.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter. Look forward to servicing.
And Jarvis, thank you for your great work on the board, and thank you for watching Richard Listens. We'll see you live in 2 weeks.
Thank you for watching.